Welcome to our Conversation Coalition theme night in June. Tonight's theme is What is Irrational About My Worldview? Conversation Coalition is a group of atheists and Christians, and while we have opposing viewpoints, we still treat each other like family and with respect, and our goal is to teach skills to like others or to our community how to have these conversations with others who might have those opposing viewpoints, and just facilitate good conversations that are respectful and caring. So that's what brings us here, and we always thank y'all for coming and being supportive of our little group here tonight. Facebook, Twitter, it's not X, and then all the socials, and come connect with us and hang out with us if you want after the group too. We always have we're going to do a question and answer tonight right after the discussion. So I'm going to be your humble moderator tonight. It might be a little squirrely, but we'll get there. Again, thank you and welcome. I'm so glad y'all are here being supportive. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary next month, so might have some cake. A happy birthday to Conversation Coalition. So I'm just glad that y'all are here and a part. So, Pedro, you said you want to?
Yes.
You had something to say?
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you both of you. Before we start, I have to do this, and I hope my two friends don't get mad. But it just we're gonna talk about Christianity, atheism, big questions. Well, all of that is good, but the reason why we do that too, is that so that you guys and people see this. And hopefully we can replicate it. You guys can have these conversations with other people, because it's just when we stop talking, bad things happen. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I want to be vulnerable with you and share something that happened to me yesterday. So yesterday I met with two friends from the Conversation Coalition, my friend Gary and my friend Elliot. And I don't know what happened, guys. I'll be vulnerable with you. I've heard these things so many times in my life. But we were having a conversation. They said exactly what they think it's true, which is beautiful. But I was starting to feel, I don't know why, very emotional, to the point that it took me a while to get out of there. And by the way, during the conversation, I didn't take care of my friend's Gary's feelings, because he was sharing his heart with me, and I was just so blocked because I was being rubbed off. I have no idea still. I was talking to my wife. And then my friend Elliot actually taught me how to communicate my worldview better. And he's not even a Christian. So two things happened yesterday. I was schooled in the way we are supposed to have conversations, and also in the way someone like an atheist is actually teaching me how to communicate my worldview better. I want to bring attention to this so that, I've been doing stuff like this for 10 years. What happened to me yesterday, as far as I know, has never happened. I still don't know what happened to me yesterday, but I wanted to share this with you so that you know that those things happen. But being vulnerable and knowing that it is okay to have moments like that, but taking care of the person that you have in front of you, no matter what they think, it is very important. So just wanted to share this with you. And yesterday I was schooled by my two best friends in the atheist side of things. So I appreciate you both so much.
All right.
Okay.
So
what is irrational about Christianity?
Get ready to
or about me
again.
Yes.
Ladies first tonight.
Please.
So Sydney,
I deserve it.
please. I'm going to start. Well, okay, so you're doing a 2-minute intro, and we'll go back and forth. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Like to intro about myself or my thoughts. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to start. We're going to give the 2-minute floor.
So-
we're going to start now.
Wait.
So-
So no.
Or do you want
Does the intro include my perspective or just my? I just want to make sure I don't. I'm ruining it already.
Yeah, I think it should just say what is something that is irrational about Christianity or even me, and then we talk about this.
Okay.
Let's go.
And then I'll do that the same about atheism.
Perfect.
All right. 2 minutes. Let's go.
Okay. So my name is Sydney Davis. I'm a professional debater. I'm also the host of a show called Growing Up Fundy, where I interview people from all religions, and I am an atheist. So that being said, the way that I view Christianity, I was thinking about that today, and the best example I could come up with was more of a scenario than a question or an answer. As a woman, and I think many women in this room can identify with this, when you tell people that you're seeing someone, especially in the online dating space, they immediately start to ask you questions to make sure that this is a legitimate person. They say, have you met them? Have you spoken with them? Are you sure that this person's identity is who it is? And the best analogy that I could come up with how Christianity looks to me is if Pedro came to me and he said, Sydney, I've met someone. And I said, that's wonderful. What are they like? And he's like, they're amazing, they're beautiful, they're gracious, they tell me all these wonderful things, they make me these promises, they're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm like, great, when did you talk to them the first time? And he says, well, I haven't talked to them. And I say, well, when have you met? And he says, well, I haven't met them yet. And I say, well, how do you know what they're like? Well, they write the most beautiful messages to me, and they tell me that if I'm with them, I get these rewards, I'm going to see these promises, I'm going to see these wonderful things happen to me. And I say, who do you know who's met this person? And he says, nobody. And I say, who do you know who's been in this person's physical presence and has spoken to them? Nobody. Okay, that's fine. Who do you know has been promised things by this person that has physically seen those promises happen? Well, they're not supposed to yet, so none of us have. And you can see the concern. We call it catfishing. Right? When somebody starts to ask you for things like money, which the Bible does. When people start to make you promises like the Bible does. When you're supposed to have faith, you're supposed to believe. The entire brand is that they're not supposed to do the things before you believe that they'll do them. In real life, as a woman, my father would chain me in the basement. Right? He would not allow me to continue to have this relationship, which is what people say they have with God. How can you have a personal relationship with a man you've never seen, has never spoke to you, has never FaceTimed you, but the words he writes that you think he wrote, you're not even sure he wrote them. You didn't see him write them. He didn't record himself writing them, but you think he wrote them because a guy he knows told you, oh, I'm his friend Peter, and this is what he told me to tell you, that he loves you, and he's making you all these promises. And I think that's concerning to say that you have a personal relationship. Now, I mean that as respectfully as possible. But Pedro, if you came to me and you said all of the exact same things about a woman you met on the internet that I hear from people about their relationship with God, I would be worried. I tell my uncle who falls for these scams all the time, right? On Plenty of Fish. I'm like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. We've all said that, right? Everyone in this room has said that. Everyone in this room, if your daughter or your granddaughter came to you and said, I have never met this amazing, wonderful man who's giving me rules, who's telling me what to do, who's trying to influence my relationships with other people and influence my relationship with them, and he tells me he loves me every day, that's called love bombing. And it is a form of abuse. It is a literal form of abuse. I'm not using that word hyperbolically. And so when people are religious, I believe them. I 100% believe them, that they love God, that they feel the love and the beauty of God's love in their life. But I am also greatly concerned. I'm greatly concerned by the promises that they're expected to wait for at the end of their life, that the entire idea behind the narrative is that none of us know until we get there. If that were a Craigslist ad, I would not let Pedro get in the car, right? If that were a woman online, I would say, Pedro, please don't send money to that woman.
So Pedro, how would you explain to someone who presents this, particular, they're worried about you being catfished or being scammed? I mean, wouldn't want to say religion's a scam necessarily. Probably to a lot of Christians that could be kind of an offensive term, but I can kind of see where that comes in.
Just a lot of promises being made by somebody who, in my opinion, has not been made to deliver yet, and has set a set of rules where the whole point is that he doesn't have to deliver because you're just supposed to believe.
So,
yeah, that is it. I by the way, we actually didn't share these with each other, so we didn't prepare anything. So I love this. Okay, I appreciate that. Let's see. When it comes to catfishing and all of this, with Christianity and, as you said, relationship with Jesus, the best way for me to, or for us to actually test if Christianity in between quotation works is to actually obey it. So, for example, I try to follow Jesus as much as I can, and then I see the results. And the results are, for example, a physical anxiety and depression that I had in the past are almost gone. And I have better relationship with people, both Christians and non-Christians. I don't say the horrible things I said to myself in the past. I actually don't say the horrible things I said about others when I'm alone and no one is looking. And so these are things that I can actually test. So I'm following Jesus and what is happening with this. Now, if I were to follow Jesus and then bad things happened, which, by the way, when we say bad, we should talk about the foundational aspects of morality, but we are just assuming that we all know what bad and good is in the conversation. So that is a way to test. Another way to think about this is, for example, I don't know exactly with Sydney, but the way you can think about Jesus too is the way you can think about an ideal or a philosophical idea. Probably Sydney thinks that human rights is a good thing, but human rights, you don't find them anywhere. You dissect a human being, you cannot see them anywhere. It's an actual belief. And when you attach yourself to that belief that is actually not physical, it's not tangible, it's just a belief, when you attach to that, you think about that, about yourself and others, then things around you happen, and then you go, oh, so I think human rights is a good thing. So you can think about Jesus as an ideal too, and that would also work. You also mention, and I'll let you talk, Sydney. You also mentioned a little bit about the Bible was written or not, and this. You mentioned a few things that we don't have time to cover, but those are the two things I would say. Tell me more. Tell me more.
So the first thing I would say is you don't need Jesus to do those things. I have no relationship with Jesus at all. I still honor my father and mother. I still pay my taxes. I'm still kind to people. I like to think maybe I'm a horrible bitch and they don't tell me. I do my best to recycle. I befriend. I used to, sit at the table with the kid who had no other people sitting next to them. My confusion with that is why Jesus needs to be involved in order to feel the effects of what Jesus tells us to do, which in my opinion is usually just decent advice, like be kind to other people, don't harm other people, try to understand others, try to treat your neighbor the way that you would treat other people. I don't do that because of a relationship with Jesus. I do that because I recognize the benefits of those behaviors and how they're not only beneficial to me, but the tribe as a whole. And also because in my heart and in my body, that's just who I like to be as a person. The other thing I'll say to address what you were saying is my problem with the Bible being written in so many letter forms. So much of the Bible is written in letters, is written in second accounts, is written in historical books. There's a reason that hearsay is not admissible in the courts here in the United States. And that's because me telling you what someone told me someone did is not provable. It's not good evidence. It's not, they don't allow it in court. Judge Judy doesn't even allow hearsay in the court of law. And so it's odd to me to say in the United States court of law, right, hearsay, you can't believe what your neighbor said, your other neighbor said to them about you. You can't believe that. But when it comes to your eternal salvation, that's supposed to be what you live by. And those two things in my mind do not add up. So I guess to boil it down, I don't think you need Jesus in order to do the good things you described that do make you feel better and that do improve your mental health many times and your relationships with other people. And I just am not a fan of hearsay to be taken as the way that my salvation is supposed to be instructed when I'm not even allowed to use hearsay to defend myself against a traffic ticket.
Yeah. Do we have some time or should we move on? Bethany, what do you think?
Let's go. I want to add to this and then
Okay.
we can move on to the next subject. Here's one, okay, so let's say you're in the Christian shoe and they're like, okay, cool. You said you don't have to have these ideals without Jesus, but aren't you kind of borrowing from that worldview? That's one that I think I could hear a Christian say to me. Are you kind of stealing from you're picking and choosing and borrowing, but then you're not following the Bible. Like how would maybe each of y'all's perspective, like kind of help explain like where you're coming from as a Christian, and then
Yeah.
how you feel about that response that we can often hear, to get that perspective in before y'all move on to the next subject, because I think that's a very common thing that both sides often have to hear and listen to.
Okay, so another thing I would like to say is I actually respect the view, meaning I have the same type of skepticism. Like if someone comes to me, I know this person, whatever. What is this person? No, it's actually not like physical. You cannot. What are you saying? So I get it. I get it. The thing about Christianity, though, this is beyond we believe this is true or not. I work at this church, right? And I'm the outreach director. And we work with ministries and men that are in prison and men that are having problems with addiction and stuff like that. So when you see that the type of transformation that these people experience because of the words of Jesus, then I mean, factually, one should stop and say, but why? Because if this were true, why is this tapping? If this is false, why is this tapping onto something that is actually causing like good results? This is something I would say we could even study it. I don't know. I don't know if we could do that, but we can study it sociologically, anthropologically. Even if we accept, we can talk about that, evolutionary psychology and evolution as the propulsion of morality and tribe engagement and all of that. When Jesus says, "Love your enemies," something happens there that I don't think that there's a I don't think that there's a transition, that there's a jump there. And again, if you want to test if something works, then the best way to test it is to try to not just listen to it but to obey it. So that's what I would say.
Murder is illegal even in non-Christian countries. Stealing is illegal in non-Christian countries. If you go to India and you steal in some parts of India, your hand gets cut off because you're a thief. There are things that are true regardless of whether or not Jesus tells you to follow those rules. Now, do I think it's a good thing that Jesus also teaches those lessons? Absolutely. But anybody who has spent any time on social media has seen fitness gurus, thought leaders, they call them now. And the way to get people to follow your system, whether it's your brand, whether it's your you want to be like the next president, whether it's whatever, is you give good advice that's true. Like, this is a fact. And people are like, yeah, I can get on board with that. And you're like, and this is a good thing. And they're like, that does sound like a good thing. Great, thank you. And then about 5 points in, you say, this is also good. And people are like, that's unusual, but you've never led me astray. Up until now, you've given me nothing but good advice. So I have no reason to question what you're telling me now. So, and that's like textbook. I'm trying to think of like a good word for that, but that's like a textbook behavior of somebody who is trying to get a following. And I don't mean they have to be evil. I don't mean these people are manipulative, but how many times have we seen those clips that are like, do squats? And we're like, yeah, squats are good. And they're like, calories in, calories out. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, so drink my protein shake. And we're like, everything else you said was right, but I don't want to drink, And so the standard methodology of getting people to follow whatever it is you're trying to get them to follow is to include common knowledge, good advice across the board. And then once people recognize that you're out to do good, which I genuinely believe you're out to do good, then they say, have you ever heard of heaven? Have you ever heard of hell? And people are like, oh, well, I'm more likely to listen to that because everything you've said up until now has made me feel really good. I treat people better. I communicate better. I'm a better member of my society. I'm a better citizen. I have a better relationship with my family, my friends. So yeah, I have a minute to hear about heaven and hell, or atheism, or your protein shake, or whatever, your online course that you want people to take. So I said all that to say, I genuinely believe that the positive outcome you see from those behaviors. I've seen it. You're one of my favorite people. I've seen it. You and Gary, people gravitate towards you. Gary has no relationship with Jesus whatsoever. But you are both magnetic, wonderful people who I would trust with my life because of behaviors, in my opinion, that you would follow whether or not Jesus told you to.
I think should we move on or yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Sydney. That was challenging. Okay, so something irrational about atheism. Okay, so this is not about atheism, your atheism. This is atheism in general, and this might not apply to all atheists either. So atheism in general, my experience having conversations with friends.
Yeah.
So my critique, one of them is atheism lack of consistency with the practical application of the scientific method in the day-by-day life. And I'll explain this. So atheism encourages questioning and skepticism, which can lead to a more rigorous and critical approach to understanding the world. This emphasis on evidence and reason can foster intellectual growth and scientific advancement. So two of the main foundational philosophical ideas for atheism, as far as I know, it's scientific materialism. It's a worldview that asserts that all phenomena can be explained through physical processes and empirical observation, and it relies heavily on the scientific method to investigate and explain the nature of reality. So scientific method, science, logic, critical thinking, this is true, this is factual. Boom. This is a good thing. I actually agree that it's a great thing. And then we have naturalism. Is a broader philosophical viewpoint that asserts that everything arises from natural properties and causes, and supernatural or spiritual explanations are excluded or discounted. Scientific method is very important. So here's the irrational thing that I think maybe it's not irrational. It's more like inconsistent. But I don't know. It's hard for me to decide one of the two. So, for example, smoking has long been recognized as a leading cause of various health problems and diseases. Peer-reviewed research highlights the significant dangers associated with smoking, emphasizing its impact on almost every organ in the body and its role as the primary preventable cause of premature death in the United States. Cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, peer-reviewed articles to and fro everywhere. And then, by using the scientific method, we know that it's actually wrong to smoke. Science is actually factual about it. But then I have encountered many atheists that smoke, which, for me, is inconsistent and irrational, because it seems that when it comes to the big questions in life, when it comes to metaphysics, ontology, all these things, it's critical thinking, scientific method. And when it comes to the day-by-day stuff, all of a sudden, there's a suspension of judgment. And this decision has almost like nothing to do with atheism itself. So I think that is my criticism, and it's inconsistent and a bit irrational. What do you think, Sydney?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a smoking atheist that denied smoking was bad for them?
I haven't, but even if I met, the fact that they're smoking, relying on the scientific method and factual truths, I think that is irrational and inconsistent.
So I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I've never met a smoker who denied smoking was bad for them. And that's the important part. Every day, you will meet people who believe one thing and act another, right? You'll meet people who are like, I need to lose weight, and then they'll eat a bunch of food in the next sitting. You'll meet people who say, I need to save my money, and then they'll go online and they'll buy a bunch of things. But they probably won't deny most of the time that that's bad. If you go up to an atheist and you're like, you said smoking is bad. They're like, yep. And you're like, so why are you smoking? And they're like, because I'm addicted to nicotine. Right? It's the denial of whether or not that's bad that I think would fall under inconsistent. It's if I was smoking and walking around telling you that actually smoking's good for you, Pedro, that would be a huge red flag for somebody who claims to believe in science. But I know that my bad habits are bad habits. Do I do them? Yes. Do I still believe the earth is round? Believe that vaccines work? Believe that everybody deserves human rights? Absolutely. Am I going to go home and eat a gigantic midnight snack and then tomorrow wonder why I'm still the same size? Yes, I am. Even though I'm getting married in like a couple weeks, I'm going to be like, why is this medium still the right size, right? Because there are things that I am willing to, that only impact me. That only impact me. If I eat eggs that make me feel like crap, because they do, I get sick every time I eat eggs, but I love eggs. I'm going to eat them and I'm going to be like, I shouldn't have done that, right? Shouldn't have done that. Am I going to take a weapon in a public space? Am I going to smoke a cigarette outside where it's in other people's faces and they have to inhale it? And I know they can get secondhand smoke. No. Am I going to try to keep other people from voting at the polls? Am I going to speed and put people's lives at risk? If somebody smokes and they know that it's bad for them, they know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you told me that every atheist you ever met denied that smoking was bad for them, totally different story.
No, well, it is interesting because this actually helps my point even because, for example, as a Christian, I go, okay, so the order of the universe, existence, and foundational truths, morality, meaning, purpose, and all that, might suggest the existence of something in critical thinking, scientific method. I mean, no, not at all. But here's the thing, smoking is something tangible. We know it's there, right? We can, okay, it's here. But if an atheist tells me I smoke and I know it's bad, they are actually willingly choosing to be rational while they're doing it. So I think it's even more to my point. I think I would respect a lot. I would respect anyone. But if an atheist would say the scientific method is just what it is, and this is factual truth, seeing an atheist, for example, smoking, that seems to me like a very rational thing to do if the scientific method is as crucial and as important to further their life and knowing only things that are true. So it's inconsistent to apply the scientific method, critical thinking, hypothesizing in such a structured, firm way when it comes to the big questions in life, but then very, very lenient, I don't know if that's the word, but very like loose when it comes to the day by day. I think it's inconsistent.
But, and you're right, it is inconsistent, but it's not irrational. It's inconsistent. But so let me tell you, my entire brand is being an atheist. My whole thing is being an internet atheist. And I think about the scientific method exactly 0 times a day. 0. Never think about it. But what I do think about is the idea that millions of people in this world, especially in the United States, are operating their entire life based on a system that none of us, that is led by somebody that none of us have ever seen. None of us have ever spoken to. We've all been given this guide. We're just supposed to trust. We're just supposed to believe. And like literally the whole thing is that we believe without seeing. But what I do to only me, to only myself, when I eat eggs that make me feel bad, when I use like maybe lotions that I know are going to dry out my skin, but I love the way they smell, when I listen to music that I know is going to remind me of a time in high school that I don't want to think about, that only impacts me. The difference between what you're talking about and like what atheists champion for and what we don't follow in our own private life is, one, we'll tell you. Most of us will tell you firsthand, I ate something I shouldn't have, and I knew it was going to hurt me, and I wanted to do it. I smoked. I know it's bad for me, but I'm going to do it. But what we won't do is we won't impact other people's rights and freedoms and their ability to live through actions that we deny are bad, with also science being the basis of our beliefs. We still believe in things like the ozone and global warming and human rights and women's ability to choose their own reproductive freedoms. Me eating cheesecake in bed at night while watching Netflix is not going to stop somebody from getting a medically necessary abortion in the state of Tennessee. So they're two radically different things. What I believe happens to us after we die has nothing to do with whether or not I'm going to wear shoes that are going to leave like a blister on the back of my foot, even though every time I wear them, I think it's going to be different. I think, it's going to leave a blister. That's totally different than my system is not only correct and scientifically right, but also you need to believe my system. And when you tell me I'm actually not comfortable with your system, I'm going to go and change the legislation to make sure that you are forced to live by my system because I like that system and it makes the most sense to me. That you're not going to find an atheist doing that.
I mean that is very interesting. I think you just mentioned so many topics there, and I don't know. I mean, we could talk about all of them, but I still think that the main idea here, the rationality of it, because we could talk about morality, we could talk about this and forcing people to believe stuff and all of that. We could talk about all of that, but those are interesting topics. But that doesn't change the fact that if I have a conversation with an atheist friend that is completely attached, and I am too, to the scientific method, because with its limitations, but the things that it does well, but then factually true with peer-reviewed articles, that smoking and is bad. Well, no, let me finish. So if you do that, that is just, I mean, that is. Look, if we apply those restrictions to the big questions, like those questions are universal, whether we want it or not, why we're here, is there something rather than nothing, meaning, purpose, morality. When it comes to those, it's clear. Critical thinking, scientific method, materialism, and that's it. And if you force me to the end of it, which is for now the Big Bang, whatever, boom, that's it. There's a don't know there. Perfect. But now when it comes to the day by day, all of this is conceptual, but then then I go, so that tells me that maybe atheism is just a conceptual. So it's just, I mean, atheism is a lack of believing God. I get that, but when you're hearing someone suggesting the existence of something beyond matter, consciousness, idealism, whatever, and then no, we don't have way to demonstrate these peer-reviewed articles, but we have peer-reviewed articles about things that we are here, tangible, we touch, and all of a sudden it's almost like, no, but I smoke. And by the way, I choose to smoke, which is almost like, it's just like adding another step to it, which is I'm actually willingly knowing to choose wrong, even though if I'm not affecting people, I'm going to choose to do this. So I don't know. But
let's kind of respond to back to that.
I've actually got a super quick response that I wish I had said the first time instead of going off it. Atheists who smoke, and Christians who are divorced.
Yeah. But the topic here is
it's the same.
Atheism.
It's the same.
No, but we're talking about atheism. When you said something about Christianity, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything about atheism. Of course, there are Christians that, of course. I mean, that no one denies that. But now we're focusing.
A lot of people deny that, though.
Oh yeah, but it's factually true. It's factually true that Christians divorce. It's true. I have nothing to say about that.
Okay. Yeah.
I have absolutely nothing to say about that.
All I'm saying is the same. You know how one of the tenets of Christianity is that we're born sinners, right?
Yeah.
We're born imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that human beings are born imperfect, not because of the Bible, but I think we share that belief that human beings struggle on a daily basis to be perfect and none of us are perfect. That is the smoking atheist. That is the divorced Christian. That is the Christian who had a child out of wedlock. That is the atheist who knows they have high cholesterol but keeps going to the same restaurant because it's their favorite. Human beings in general will always do things they enjoy that are against their best interest to a certain degree. And it's how many people's best interests that is against that I think separates whether or not something is truly irrational or just inconsistent. And that's all I have to say.
So you've got another. Let's see. We've had your irrational one, and then you had one already.
Yeah.
So who's ready for the next one? Sydney.
Yeah. So something that I find to be irrational about Christianity as a belief system is how much of the rules, even though it's supposed to be a personal relationship with Jesus, a personal relationship with God, a one-on-one relationship, how much of Christianity involves worrying about what other people are doing in private. So, for example, atheists, we care about what other people are doing to other people in public. Like we care. If your rights, even as a Christian, are being violated, I hate that. I don't like that. We protest in an effort to make sure that everyone, regardless of your beliefs, regardless of where you're from, regardless of how old you are or where you live or the mistakes you've made or have not made, we want to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to live in a certain way. Whenever I was Christian for a very long time, I was a very devout Christian, and my best friend to this day is still a devout Christian. It surprises me that when I wake up in fear, my fear is that something will happen to change people's rights, whether it's women's rights being taken away, whether it's the ability to worship in certain ways in public, no matter what relationship you have with any religion. I've noticed that many Christians' fears are things that people will do that don't follow Christianity. Like, I've heard Christians talk about how they're afraid that abortion will be legal. They're afraid that gay marriage will be legal. It's interesting to see one side say, I'm afraid things will be taken from people, and the other side is saying, I'm afraid that people will be allowed to do these things that I don't like. And my question is, I hate licorice. I hate black licorice. But I would never...
What is that? What is that?
It's like a black candy. It's like like Twizzlers with the black one that tastes really bad. Yeah, it's a gross candy. Yeah. I don't like bitter candy. Okay. And I hate it, and I think it's disgusting. But I would never in a million years would I say, I hate it so much that I don't want anyone else to be able to eat it. And I have a booth at a craft fair, and a gentleman came up and just randomly started talking to me about abortion and gays and things like that. And I told him, I said, you don't have to get an abortion, and you don't have to get gay married. To me, that's the end of it. To me, if it doesn't cost you money, if you don't have to do it, if we're not mandating that you support it, if we're not infringing on any of your personal rights and freedoms by allowing other people to do this thing that does not infringe on your rights and freedoms, why is it a big deal? Whereas so much of what I remember learning in Christianity was talking to people about how they should be doing what you're doing, and then if they don't do those things, it's awful. And while I totally understand why you would want as many people in heaven as possible, it sounds like a beautiful place, I don't understand why there is such a militant observation of other people's private business when it doesn't impact you. When it impacts you, totally different story. If somebody's stepping on your feet, totally different story. But if, like, for all you know, maybe I've had multiple abortions. Who knows? But I'm the same person to you that I've always been. And so it's always interesting to me when somebody has partaken in things that don't impact Christians at all in any way, but they trouble themselves with the fact that they know that's going on, even though they don't see it in front of their eyes.
Yeah. So Pedro, I'm going to let you have a time response on this one.
So when it comes to politics, I think Christianity should be the message of the gospel should be expanded through behavior and not policies. So when it comes to politics, Christianity, there is something very unique that happens in this country. Sydney, probably you have traveled. If you travel to any country in Europe, you wouldn't feel anything like this, or people using politics in order to further. I mean, I guess with politics too, though, there's always a presupposition concerning the way we should behave or the things that we should do and all of that. Whether you're a Christian or not, we have certain presuppositions about life, and um, that's what we do when we go to vote. Like, it's almost like saying, okay, I'm voting, hopefully everyone is going to be led the way I would like them to be led. And we are social species. It's very difficult to not be interacting with each other. And this idea of individualism, that is becoming a little bit of hyper individualism, that what I do doesn't affect you or what you do doesn't affect me, I don't believe that is true. In order to be free, you need to have a society working so well that gives you the freedom to think that you're free. So anything that I do or you do ends up affecting. When I go to the supermarket, I like seeing all the tomatoes there and all the lettuce and all the things. It's beautiful. There are people working. There's so many things that are happening in order for me to feel okay. Today I feel like very individualistic and nothing. So I just don't know that is as as true. I don't know if that is the way to say it. Now, when it comes to, for example, you mentioned the topic of abortion, Sydney, and I actually wanted to add it. Yeah, so the topic of abortion, that is um, that is like human rights. So we all believe in human rights, and we do believe in human rights because of we are swimming in Christian waters when it comes to morality. This is just history. The Enlightenment helped a lot to further the scientific method, and many things that Christians were doing bad was redirected by people like Francis Bacon and the scientific method. So we are all in this. Christians have done, like, for example, I shared with my friends the other day a letter from Martin Luther that he's actually making fun of Copernicus when he came up with a heliocentric model. So Martin Luther, there's a letter that he's wrote by his students listening to him, and he's making fun. So yeah, we're here, we make mistakes, that's for sure. But with abortion, like, for example, abortion, human rights, what are they? We don't know. Someone could say, no, it's well-being, this works, it doesn't. As soon as you exert some type of pressure to human rights, like, okay, no more food and supermarkets for 1 month, you will see where human rights would go. But abortion, I think it's very irrational. When I talk to my friends atheists about abortion, and then they start using philosophical, ideological ideological concepts in order to deny factual truth of biology, which is when you start talking about, because of interests that are sociological, anthropological, and with pleasure and all of that, there's an interest in saying that a fetus is not a human being. And then all of a sudden you go, but is there any other thing in the known universe that become a human being that is not a fetus?
But
and why do we do that? So
here's I want to like get the conversation back to like I mean, this is going to sound harsh, like the micromanaging, but she was explaining like micromanaging how people should live their lives.
Yes.
And like using religion or whatever it is, Christianity or like legislation. So like I kind of want to steer that out back to that conversation. Okay. Like why is that the concern? Like she's saying, like, you don't want an abortion, don't get one. So like I kind of want to steer it back to kind of boil it down, distill it down to that, less of the.
Well,
we can get in the philosophical lead.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's belief. So a fetus is a human being. Period. I was a fetus. Everyone was a fetus here, and we all become human beings. As far as we know, there's no fetus that has become any other thing that is not a human being, as far as we know. And but that is a belief. When it comes to, for example, if I say this is me particularly, I cannot obligate a person not to have an abortion. I think that I want people to have the right to do it, because I want to have the right and the freedom to do the things that I want, right? I get that, but the problem is that there's a belief behind this, and if I can do anything to avoid that happens, I'm going to do it. Anything like without trampling anyone's right to actually do it. But I just don't know how to. I cannot come up with an example here, but um, for example, I don't even know if this is a good example though. You guys help me. LGBTQ. So schools and pushing these ideas in children and in schools. We got to the conclusion of saying, okay, so not religion in schools, perfect. That is perfect. And all of a sudden, we're doing all of this, and what the scientific basis for all of this is actually being researched right now. It's a more ideological. We talk about it. It's happening. That is being imposed from a different worldview that is not Christian. So as an example of saying, so there's something about human beings that we do this. This is not only Christians, that there is it comes from different places, not only Christianity. I wouldn't obligate a person to not have an abortion, but I would do my best for this person to convince her not to do it for sure. And by the way, as a Christian, my duty is not only don't do it and then the baby is born and no, I'm going to surround you by people to help you raise the kid and to give you as many things as you can. So that is the ideal. So yeah, tell me what you think about all that.
So, for just to touch briefly on a point you made a moment ago, the state of Alabama actually just passed a law that will require every public school to have the 10 Commandments posted. So the idea that we're getting rid of church in school is actually headed in the opposite direction, unfortunately.
But Sydney, you notice that is more like a rebellious. That is a rebellious act because of everything that is happening.
I don't think
It's not like because we said no religion in schools, and kind of the I don't know with Alabama, the South is just a bit different. But in general, okay, so let's not talk about things like religion.
I don't think it's rebellion. I think it's punishment. I don't think it's rebellion. I think it's the other side, and I'm not saying all Christians support this.
Yeah.
I know a lot of Christians who are pro-choice, but overall, the legislation that is in place that is making these demands is using Christianity as the basis for why they want these things passed. And you know that if atheist leadership was making rules, people would be saying, atheists want this. So I don't feel out of line by saying Christians want this if they're going to be changing legislation in the name of God, in the name of Jesus, swearing on the Bible in office in a country that's supposed to, I have my First Amendment bracelet on right now, separate church and state. So I feel fair in saying that because I know that if it were the opposite, if it were atheists saying take the 10 Commandments out of the schools or take God out of the school or take God out of the pledge, people would be saying atheists are doing this. Atheists are doing this because that is an atheistic belief that is supported by atheism. And if atheist government were saying, in the name of atheists, I'm making this rule, I would not blame people for saying atheists are doing this, just like they say Republicans want that, Democrats want that. Whether or not you're one of those, at the end of the day, Christians are the ones support. I don't know a single atheist who's like, yes, 10 Commandments in school. Absolutely. Because it's a Christian ideology. It's a Christian rule. There's also a lot of stuff going on in Texas right now where very similar public schools that are funded by the government are being told to post visible prayer and 10 Commandments in school. And I don't think it's a rebellion. I don't think they're saying people are trying to stifle Christianity. We need to defend ourselves. They're saying, whoa, 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 we liked it the way it was before. Now people are telling me that that I need to treat gays the same way that I treat straight people, and I don't like that. So I'm going to remind them God is God, and he's the Lord, and he doesn't support that. So I'm going to remind them by things like 10 Commandments. Again, I'm not saying that's you, but it's hard to separate Christianity from these rules when it is people supporting them in the name of Christianity and in great numbers, right? We've all got the crazy neighbor or the crazy relative, the uncle who does things and you're like, he's part of my family, but he's not. I don't know. Like, even I remember when I was a devout Christian, I remember there was a joke about how you're better off being non-religious in a church than you are being a Presbyterian in a Baptist church or a Methodist. You know what I mean? Like, it's a greater sin to be the wrong type of Christian than it is to be non-Christian whatsoever, because
Yeah.
at least there you're redeemable.
So, what's your response to that? Because I know you probably have another irrational belief before we get ready for Q&A that you wanted. Do you have another response? I mean, it's almost 7:30, y'all.
I think we laid out.
You like-
It's almost 7:30.
Yeah, it is.
Hit
Y'all
me with it, Pedro.
I mean, y'all.
This is irrational.
y'all-
Time is irrational.
Time is irrational. All of this.
Okay, so I think that is a good criticism. I think Christianity, in certain aspects, has become a very weird thing, especially in this country. There are many reasons why that happened. Several reasons that I know, but so in that respects, I can see that. But then, if it's not Christianity, let's say that, let's just take it as it is, because it's happening, it's factually, and you're right. But if a person is not a Christian and is saying, I think this is true, we see that as if it were neutral, but it's not neutral. It's coming from another way to understand the world. And it's also, it comes with the assumption that this way of seeing the world, whatever it is, it's neutral, but it should be actually coined by everyone. So I don't think that we're going to get to a point where everything is going to be so pure, that everything is so neutral, because that type of neutrality when it comes to worldview doesn't exist. But I get the criticism, though. It is strange. I have moments, Sydney, that I have conversations with a Christian friends, and I go, okay, so let's say out of 100 words, 20 words are not Christianity, is more politics, is more culture, is more, but it's all merged into, and probably I do that too, by the way. I'm not perfect, but I just need to be careful with those things, that's for sure. No, well,
Well, all I was going to say is, there's a big difference between, so let me backtrack. I think it's interesting that the burden of following the scientific method only falls on the atheist side, and we're supposed to live a scientifically accurate life, but Christians aren't expected to live a biblically accurate life. If we don't live a scientifically accurate life, it's irrational, it's inconsistent. But if Christians don't live a biblically accurate life, no pork, don't get divorced, definitely don't marry a divorced person, don't have any kind of sexual intercourse before your wedding day, don't wear mixed fabrics, that's them being the sinner that God told them they were, and they just need to learn from that and be forgiven of those sins. And in my opinion, I do think there is a world where neutrality can exist. It started when we said that the government and the church would be separated. That's where it started. But then somewhere along the line, it actually became okay to include, like, yeah, we can put God in some of those documents. That's fine. That's not too much. And now we have escalated to a point where you are laying your hand on the Bible when you're being sworn into the presidency. Well, you don't have to. You can lay your hand on whatever you want. Do you remember when somebody photoshopped Obama putting his hand on the Quran and this country blew up? It didn't even happen. But imagine if he had. Imagine if he'd wanted to. Imagine if that was how he felt best. Exploded. Do you remember? I don't remember this because I wasn't here, but do you remember when Kennedy got elected and he was Catholic? And people lost their minds. They're like, this country is going to shit because, to hell because we put a Catholic in office, right? So I've never seen atheists get that amount of power, get that amount of respect, get that amount of demand, get that amount of fear. I've never seen people in hoods running around burning whatever atheist symbol it is we're using these days. I haven't been to the latest meeting. In the name of atheism. Yeah. So again, not all Christians, but many, many Christians in many places of high power that put people like me in jail for things that are not even part of my belief system at all in a country that says they separate church and state.
Quick response.
No, well, I had three rational things
Yeah, I wanna hear
too.
your rational
I mean,
things.
those are interesting topics, but it's almost like it's going to many places. We don't have just time to talk. I still think that my second point was the same, but about alcohol. It's very inconsistent and very irrational for an atheist that believes in critical thinking, in the scientific method, and factual truths that are tangible to choose to drink alcohol. I think that is incredibly irrational, counting with the facts that they adore, and I do too, critical thinking and the scientific method. But well, I don't have time for that. There's also cases for causal sex and promiscuity, and this is not only atheists, okay? So you guys understand it. I'm just saying specifically something that I find irrational about this. But well, the third one that I had.
Well, hang on just a second for me. I hate to jump in. So this is normally the time where we bring it to y'all, and we give y'all about 30 minutes in this last time to ask your best questions whatsoever. One thing I've noticed about these events is that we tend to just end up standing around for the next hour and a half anyway. So, round of applause. Would we like our wonderful speakers tonight to go an extra 15 minutes and then we'll start Q&A, or do we want to go into Q&A? First, round of applause if you want to go to Q&A right now. All right. That's good. Round of applause if you would like 15 more minutes from our wonderful speakers. I think 15. Does that sound? That sounded about half and half, so I'm going to break the tie. I'm going to give you 15 more minutes, you guys.
So no, I would just finish in my point, and so the third point that I had was let me see, where is it? Yes. So this is something I actually respect a lot about atheism, by the way. But still, I have conversations with atheist friends, and I've noticed something that happens usually, not always, but usually, when atheism is faced with existential questions on morality, meaning, purpose, metaphysics, and ontology. Most of the time, but not always, but most of the time, atheism, it exhibits some close-mindedness at the suggestion of a potential explanation of why things are the way they are, due to their preconceived notions and assumptions restricted by their own scientific materialistic worldview. So, this is, I don't even know if I understand what I wrote there, but no. Let me, Sydney, let me give me a bit more time to. So what I mean by that is, we talk about, we have morality, whatever morality come from, okay? We have morality with this meaning and the questions and this deep stuff and all that. When it comes to the suggestion, so we have all of this. Does this that does existing and the way it is suggests something? When it comes to that question, because of the denial of the existence of God, which I find respectful, because I was an atheist too, it seems sometimes that is sometimes, not all atheists, this is overgeneralization, but sometimes I see a little bit of close-mindedness, because when you deny the existence of God, but automatically, some people deny the existence of anything that is metaphysical, so they actually just close it, done, there's nothing else, and there's not even suggestion, there's no hypothesis of this, and there is a respectful literature in Western civilization and more about people, many arguments about, it doesn't have to be God. You can use scientific arguments to suggest this stuff, like we are now, well, so just to summarize that. So I find that a little bit close-minded. I know that the word in English might have a connotation that I'm not pretending it to have. Like, no, I'm stupid. I'm not saying that. It's just like, it is, when I see a person doing that, my view, the way I see it is, his worldview or her worldview is not allowing this person to actually think more critically about this. So, oh yeah.
I get what you're saying, but what you're actually doing is supporting the argument for consistency in our beliefs. You call it closed-minded, I call it believing science. You call it closed-minded, I say, we believe in science, therefore if science cannot prove it, we don't believe it, which narrows a lot of our responses down, but that's not closed-minded. That's actually, I would say, an argument in favor of consistency for atheists. Atheists say, I believe in science. You're like, what about the metaphysical? They're like, I believe in science. Science will prove it. It either does or it will eventually. And you're like, what about spirits? And we're like, I'm an atheist. I believe in science. It's consistency. It's not at all closed-mindedness. It's, this is what I believe. And while the world is full of options, if I am truly somebody who is going to make my brand believing in science, I'm going to defer to science. Now, I say this all the time, too. We wake up tomorrow and scientists come out and they say, we found evidence of God. We've been wrong the whole time. Atheists have been. God is real. According to science, I would believe in God. I would not change my trust in science because it doesn't fit what I like. I like science. I also am wrong all the time about stuff, which is why I love science, because science will come back. And the same scientist who wrote an article about one thing will come back and add to that article and edit it and be like, hey, I said this in 2012, but it turns out we've discovered this. I was wrong. Isn't that cool? Aren't you glad that we kept looking into it and we didn't stop at what we first found? They highlight the fact that they are incorrect all the time because they consistently drive forward to make sure that they have what they need to solidify their beliefs. So that being said, I don't think that's closed-minded at all. I think it's very consistent. If science came out tomorrow and was like, God's real and we have evidence, I would be very confused, but I would believe them and I would trust them.
So what do you
Yeah,
have
just
to say
to
that?
just there's a subtlety in the way I communicated. I hope I did it well.
Yeah.
It is not that we can demonstrate that there is something beyond matter, but it's this. My experience is that only the suggestion that there could be, that as soon as some atheists hear this, they automatically close down. And I think that because of all the things that we see in our actual experience, it is very logical to be open-minded to the fact that there could be something beyond, and not be just closed because of our worldviews closing us to this possibility. Because this is just not idea. This is not an idea that is, I mean, it truly is experience. We go everywhere, we just see things, and we want to know why those things are there. You see? So I've met atheists that are not like this. I'm just saying that some of the atheists that I meet, as soon as there is a suggestion for, okay, what about metaphysics and ontology and all that? Oh, that is not science, you know? But I say this a lot, but the scientific method itself is crying out for an explanation itself. And just by having that, just having a suggestion that there could be a reason why the scientific method works in this universe, I mean, I don't think that is I don't think that is an extra step that is illogical. So that's what everything that I was saying about that.
Ask him a question.
Yeah.
I literally want to hear your answer. I'm not trying to like do anything. If it is closed-minded to only believe in science, why is it not closed-minded to only follow the Bible?
Well, it's my case. In my case, the universe has been created by God, and God has communicated with human beings through the Bible. So I love the scientific method. The scientific method doesn't belong to Christians, and it doesn't belong to atheists. It belongs to humanity. So I don't have a problem with that. When COVID vaccine came out, I was part of many conversations and all that. I got the vaccine. I wish I could have had deodorant of that vaccine. I would have. So I love the scientific method. There's no problem with that. The thing is, I know that there's some Christians that I absolutely love and respect, but I disagree with, that they see the scientific method expecting that the Bible is going to teach them how to do physics or how to do arithmetic or how to build a car. The Bible doesn't teach any of that. And actually some terms that have come out in Christian circles and with theology and councils and all that, like in what is this? In the authoritative word of God, I believe that is true. The ineffable and inerrant, those words, when you apply it to theological truths, I believe all of that is true. But the Bible doesn't say anything about how I should clean this floor and this carpet. There's information, there are things about the world that I have to go outside of the Bible to learn. So for me, this is me. Scientific method is beautiful. It cries out for an explanation. The Bible is telling me how God wants to reconcile humanity with himself, and I don't have a problem with those. I do agree with you, Sydney. There's some people that conflate those two, and then you have very weird things that happen. I agree with you. So I don't. If you have any other questions,
Would you say, or no, you wouldn't say, but wouldn't it be a good point to say that if in order to understand the world, you have to look outside the Bible, wouldn't that be evidence toward the point that maybe the Bible doesn't know everything?
Well, that is a good question. Very good question. Science, again, science is not atheistic, it's not Christian, it's something that human beings do. Science doesn't have answers as of now. I don't know, with the scientific method as it is today, I don't know if we could expect that science is going to answer I wouldn't be that dramatic. Questions about meaning, purpose, the reason why, good, evil. You could say, okay, this works and this doesn't work. But then when it comes to interests and why we create a vaccine and why we create an atomic bomb, there are many things going on. When it comes to meaning, purpose, and all that the Bible, whether you believe it is true or not, of course, but the Bible gives me those answers and actually gives me an ontological reason to expect something that science working in this universe too. So, but it doesn't teach me arithmetic. I don't go to the book of Ezra to learn about biology. So
I have a perfect tie-in question. I'm sorry that I want to kind of plug in the end, kind of like to tie this all together. Are you saying what I think I hear you're saying? You would prefer whoever you're talking to, whatever belief system that they have, whatever fence, to have some sort of sense of open-mindedness, either way, spiritual or non, or just being a little bit more humble about circumstances that kind of may lead even the atheist to whatever the circumstance may be. So is to kind of like tie that in together for both of y'all, like how do y'all feel about maybe teaching other people who are Christians or non-Christians or whatever, just what would you say to kind of foster that open-mindedness, or just so that the conversations can advance better?
This is very good. Atheism, just to say it in a funny way, atheism has denominations. When I was an atheist in Spain, I wasn't the type of atheist that I find here with my friends. It's completely different. An atheist that become an atheist in India is going to have different preconception, assumptions about morality, because it's not the same. It's not the same. When I lost my train of thought. Sydney?
So this,
It will come to me, sorry.
If I had to boil it down to the simplest way that I can describe my thought process here, science gives you a million questions. The Bible gives you a million questions. Science answers them.
And the Bible answers this too.
But
when it comes to behavior, people changing lives.
So,
but you cannot use mathematics to use results. But if you see people doing horrible things and they stop doing it because of the Bible, that's an actual answer that can be
think I
quantified.
can speak for many, many atheists.
Oh, yeah.
When I say the reason we left religion, if we started there, is because we could never get the answers we sought. We were told to pray more. We were told the reason we have these questions is because of something we needed to do to our relationship with God. Basically, it was always on us to discover why we couldn't find the answers to our questions. Where science, when I say I have a question, science says, and I have an answer. Here it is. Here's a physical thing. Or, that's a great question. Let's look into that question together and figure out how we can answer that. Science never says it's because I didn't pray enough. It's because I'm not actually listening to God. He's answering it and I'm ignoring him. It's because I'm not reading the Bible enough. Science doesn't say, well, you didn't read this book well enough. You need to go back and try and read it and see if maybe you can do better this time. Science says, so sorry. Let me see if I can break this down in a way for you and show you, literally and figuratively, what we are talking about. And then when I say it still doesn't make sense, science goes, you're right, let's continue looking into it.
So the science says, though, don't drink, don't smoke, don't be promiscuous, but we keep doing it. So again, it's just to be consistent for any person in the world. It seems to be very difficult.
But the Bible says, don't get divorced, don't cheat,
Yeah, yeah.
don't steal, and we still do all of those
Yeah,
things.
I agree.
Yeah,
But-
it's just human beings.
So we answered all y'all's deep philosophical questions tonight, as y'all can tell.
Well, I hope not all of them, because now is the time where we kick it to y'all. So I'm going to be running around. Just raise your hand for me. I'll try to do my best to get you in order that I see them. You can stand when you ask your question. You can say your name. You can tell us if you're an atheist or a Christian or Hindu, whatever. Or you don't have to do any of that. But the only thing that you have to do, okay, is the opposite of what I'm doing right now. See how I'm rambling and going on much longer? At no point in time does my sentence seem to end with a
Stop it.
question.
Stop it.
So do that for us, okay? Ask a question and we'll try to get as many in as possible. And then, of course, once we are done, feel free to hang around and talk to peoples, because we all love to do it. So I saw one over here, and then just keep those hands up.
Hi, I'm Ben. This is for Pedro. Hey.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you? My question is, you seem to be arguing for transformations in people's lives to be evidence or good reason to believe in Jesus. But it seems that these kind of transformations happen across the board in Islam, Scientology, Mormonism, all across the board. So why is that evidence to believe in Jesus, but not evidence to believe in Allah or Joseph Smith or Scientology?
Great question. The thing that cannot be denied is that these things are happening. And one common denominator of all the things that you said is actually people focusing on something that is beyond themselves, which brings to me the thoughts, what is happening with actually stop thinking about ourselves as the beginning and end of our reasoning and actually expand that to something else. So it is challenging. Your question is challenging in one way, but it supports the facts that maybe human beings should stop looking at themselves and look beyond themselves to ask questions. Now, when it comes to Jesus, though, then we can talk about historical evidence. We can talk about all these things and cumulative cases and all of this, what to expect and not. And that's the reason why specifically I'm a follower of Jesus. So yeah, thank you for the question, Ben.
Hi. So, Pedro, you said LGBT pushes their agenda.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, do you know how deeply offensive that is, that statement? We're not pushing an agenda. We want the same rights and freedoms that everybody else has. We want our children to be safe in schools. That's what we want.
Yeah.
It's offensive to say that.
Yeah, so I'm sorry that it's offensive, but we have come to the point with this conversation that we should stop being afraid to talk about this. Because if you talk about, for example, Christians pushing, like it happened in this country with young earth creationism and all of that, you would say about them, they're pushing their agenda. I actually don't have any problem with people having rights. That is not the discussion. The discussion is not people having rights. The discussion is if we said that in schools we should teach things that factual science and stuff like that, then that's what we should do, because that's what we should do. I don't think that. I mean, we could talk about values too. I'm sorry that is offensive, but even if it's offensive, I heard yesterday. I mean, we're gonna hear things that are offensive, but we still need to talk about actual things to see if they're true or not. And I think it's wrong to talk about kids, to talk about sexuality in the way that it's talked about. I think it's wrong to do parades, showing stuff, doing the mannerisms, and that is just. That I don't think. I think that is absolutely horrible to do. You have the right to think that some Christians or even me do horrible things, of course. But I think that is horrible. And when you say stuff about Christianity, if I find it offensive, that is, I need to deal with that. But you have the right to say those things. So that type of freedom, we need to have it. I think it's in schools. My kid that is 4 years old, a 4-year-old shouldn't hear these things in school. They can do whatever they want with their bodies when they're adults. Maybe we should change the age with people. We could talk about that. Should people, LGBTQ members who have right? They are human beings, of course. For me, at least, the conversation is not there. It's when people that are not conscious enough about the way they think about themselves, about the world, I actually believe, okay, don't talk about Christianity. I kind of agree with that. Because of the law, church and state, you cannot talk about sexuality that way. By the way, with peer-reviewed articles confirming that there's certain uses of sexuality that's actually bad for individuals and for society. So it is not an easy question, but it's not difficult to talk about it either. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? I see a hand here. Do we have anybody else? Look, if we've still got time and none of y'all have questions, I'm going to come up with them, which is going to bum everybody out.
Can I respond to that last
Yeah,
one?
give a response and then we'll go.
I think there's a big difference between freedom of speech and freedoms. And I would disagree. When they become an adult, they're not actually allowed to do whatever they want with their body. I currently live in a state where if I have a miscarriage, I can be, legally, I can be arrested and I can be investigated for potentially having an abortion. And there's no way to prove that that's not what I did. And so it's up to men who will never know what that feels like to decide whether or not that's what I did. So I think the argument that people can do what they want once they're an adult is, and I mean this in the most respectful way, that is a very man thing to say. That's a very straight man Christian in America who statistically benefits from many things in this country. Because think of it, you speak Spanish, but you're not dark-skinned enough to be bothersome to the people who are bothered by that, right? You're Spanish, you're not Mexican. So you get different approaches from people, especially in the South and places like Tennessee where that thing's a problem. Now, granted, I'm sure you also face lots of unfortunate behaviors from people who are ignorant and don't know how to treat other humans.
But I don't use that type of behaviors to expect people to do things for me, though. So I actually...
What I'm saying is, in the same exact country where we're passing legislation that says, I'm not allowed to accidentally have a miscarriage, statistically, nearly half of the abortions that happen in this country are from women who already have children and are married. Schools are allowed to put the 10 Commandments. We can't say that it's also a country where members of the LGBTQ community who know that about themselves by the age of 11 should not be allowed to express that in school the same way that heteronormative children are allowed to have boyfriends and girlfriends in kindergarten because it's wrong and it's bad. And actually, studies have shown that the more often you talk about sex in public schools, the less likely you are to have teen pregnancy, to have unwanted pregnancy, to have sexual assaults, to have STDs. So I would actually argue that teaching children that there's more than one way to have sex is actually very, very important when it comes to sexual, which is part of our body. You know, the word sex gets such a stamp on it, especially in states like Tennessee. But There are people who show up to the hospital who do not know that you can get an STD from oral sex.
Well, I have lived in Spain, in a secular country, and I don't know. Let's see what happens. I guess we all face the consequences of our actions. I lived as in a secular country, and the way sexuality was understood, it's just like I don't even think that the conversation is about Christianity or atheism anymore.
It is in
it's
America.
even. Oh, I know.
Uniquely.
Yeah, it's like it's I don't know. I experienced that myself, and well, we'll see. I don't. I want the LGBTQ community to be free to do what they want to do, because that freedom is gonna protect my freedom. But when it comes to kids and for example, we're talking about schools and religion. If we come to terms that religion and all that couldn't be taught and all of that, I don't know if it's even critical, logical to do what we're doing in certain schools. I am not well versed. I don't know what states do this or states don't. I hear that some people are doing it. I'm aware of that. But it's not about human rights. It's about to say the conversation is about.
But it is about human rights. And I say that because the religion that you believe is the one that is the reason I can be arrested for crossing state borders to take care of a health concern. So that's all I'm saying.
That's the way you talk about.
It's not the way.
But that's the way you talk about a fetus. I'm not trying to.
Quick thing. I know we need to wrap up.
Yeah.
In the United States, at least, in medical journals, death is the point where you no longer have a heartbeat. So before you have a heartbeat, you are also not alive. That's not my opinion. That's just how it is. So if you don't have a heartbeat yet, you can't say that thing is alive if when you no longer have a heartbeat, you are legally dead. And so
that's your worldview, you see.
But that's a definition.
That is not neutral. That is, Sydney, that is the thing.
Definition.
It is very difficult to be neutral. That is a worldview. That is not.
That's not a worldview. That is a medical definition, but it is an inconvenient one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
First of all, I think that's special pleading on your part. But anyway, I wanted to say real quick. I kind of forgot my. No, okay. So this feels weird. I'll stand up. My name is Michael. Hi. I don't like speaking in front of crowds, but we're gonna give this a try. I distinctly remember in middle school being taught the birds and the bees, watching videos, going through books, things like that. I remember thinking maybe I was too young for this at the time, and I don't think I was. I think probably could have been earlier. It could have happened at an earlier age. I lost my train of thought. This is terrible. The whole point here being, if you didn't have a belief system that saw LGBTQ people as someone who should be put to death, if you're going to follow the Old Testament.
What? Oh man.
If we're going to follow the Old Testament, which again Jesus said not to.
Wow.
Put any of that aside.
Not at all Christianity, man.
Okay, well.
It's
no. We're not we kind of
okay, but okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
At least if we're going to look at Paul, he says that it's reprehensible, that it shouldn't be done. So you have a belief system that agrees with that. If you didn't have that, would you see this in the same way? Would you see gay people in the same way? Would you see teaching those things alongside other belief systems? I personally think that both sides are going too far because they're pushing back against each other.
Yes, I think, agree with that.
But at the same time, people are pushing because they're being pushed back on. And instead of having a conversation where this isn't a question anymore, if you weren't a Christian, do you think you'd feel the same way about LGBTQ issues being taught in schools? That was the question.
Okay, so here's the thing. Michael, I love your question. I do agree that this conversation is just, man, as soon as you mention it, it's all, offensive. And I understand, though, we're talking about people, no matter who they are, Christians, it doesn't matter. We're talking about people. We need to take care of people. We don't talk about this topic it's just all rebellion from any side. People are not sitting together to talk. You would say, but what is talking going to fix? Maybe we won't fix anything, but at least people would go home saying that person is a human being. and that happens from both sides. I'll be honest with you. I was an atheist in Spain, living in a very secular culture. When I saw two men kissing, I couldn't even look at these, and I was an atheist. Is that something biological? I don't know. Is that something I'm a product of certain? So, but this doesn't mean that when I'm not saying anything about the value of the person, but only the action. I don't know why this is so difficult to understand. You guys would see me doing things and you would say automatically, Pedro, don't do that. And maybe I disagree with you, but you would do it. But you're not saying that I'm a horrible person because I'm doing it. That's not the point. So, by the way, answering your question, if I were not a Christian, I would still think they are human beings. That is a factual truth, undeniable. They have human rights. They, as a non-Christian, I need to answer this. They, as an adult, they have to do what they should do, whatever they want to do. But it happens with Christianity, with LGBT, whatever. At one point, actions have consequences because we're social species. We just need to see what's going to happen with all of this. If this is actually going to take us to a better place or to a worse place, or it happens, it's same with Christianity in this country. It's good, it is bad. We'll just see.
And just a quick note. I actually work in education, and any school system that teaches sex education gives the parents the opportunity to opt out. So if your parents do feel like you're too young to know those things, they are legally given the opportunity to, I think you go to a different class, you leave the room entirely and you go to study hall. So that is an option. We're not forcing it on anyone or telling you that you're dumb or whatever for not having it. You don't have to.
So we are technically at the end of our time, but because we didn't 100% follow our normal setup, I do want to offer, if there's one more question anybody's got, I'll give you the floor.
Maybe for
a
Sydney.
moment. Yeah, for Sydney. If anybody has one. If not, I'm not going to pressure anybody too hard. All right, great. That's the end of it. Folks, thank you so much for being here. Give a huge round of applause for Pedro, Sydney, and Bethany. Before we kick you out of here, I do just once again want to remind you, I know there are a lot of people here that have been coming to all of these events, and we greatly, greatly appreciate that. Every single time that we do these events, one of the things that we are really hoping for is that you will go into your daily lives and you will bring this spirit of cordial and challenging conversations to other people, and you'll bring them back. We want this to continue growing. We recently, the last event we did was at East Nashville Beer Works, and we all stood around in a circle and we all had some pizza and beer, and we conversed, and it was wonderful. So I know you're saying, oh my gosh, Elliot, how the heck can I figure all this out? When is the next event? There's a lot of really easy ways to find that. We've got a newsletter in the back. You can sign up for it. You can also just hit us up on Facebook or YouTube at Conversation Coalition Nashville, or on Twitter at Conco Nashville. So please, you guys, please come back to the next event, bring your friends, and go into your daily lives and have more conversations. So thank you so much, everybody.